Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another Noodle film review. Tonight we're reviewing something a little bit different. We're reviewing a documentary movie, a horror documentary movie, which I've just sat through, which was quite a marathon, as it's 4 hours long. Yeah, and it was Never Sleep Again: The Elm Street Legacy. So this is a documentary based pretty much on all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, from Nightmare on Elm Street all the way through to um, Freddy versus Jason. So it looks at all the films in depth. The first sort of 40 minutes of the film is all looking at the first movie, and it's sort of based with interviews with some of the actors from the film, Heather, and obviously the director Wes Craven, and we hear all the sort of stories going on in the background where they thought that they were making something special, and and how the sort of crew sort of bonded and gave a lot of actors their first break. Obviously, the first movie stars Johnny Depp, and we see a little bit of an interview of him where he is actually praising um, being in the film. He's actually has fond memories of being in it. A lot of these big actors, when they go on to do big things, tend to look back at their earlier films and give them a bit of a slagging, but Johnny Depp seems to have always been quite proud of being in the film, and we hear lots of stories from Wes Craven and about the making of the movie, and it's a really cool sort of 45 minutes about the first film, and then we break into the second movie, um, and we start to hear about the crew that made that. Obviously, Wes Craven was he didn't do much in. I think he did a bit of he sort of like overseen it and didn't really like it. And it sort of talks about quite a few of the actors and how they thought that this is the sort of the gay film, if you like, for um Nightmare on Elm Street, as there's a lot of sort of like sort of gay influences throughout the film, and lots of sort of things nods to that sort of community, which I've never really noticed, to be honest. But yeah, and when you think about it, because like the main character in the film is actually is like openly gay, and he's talking about how he found the film very very camp and very very sort of like and it got quite popular in the sort of gay community, which again is very interesting to hear. Um, and we hear from a lot of crew that didn't like the film and didn't enjoy it, and didn't think it was a very good film. And then they go on to the third film, which I know Wes Craven sort of did a bit of co-writing on the script. There was about 4 writers in the end on it. Was it Dream Warriors? And again, it brought forward Patricia Arquette in her first sort of role, sort of thing, and 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 it goes on to talk about how this is one of the most popular of the franchise amongst the fans, and sort of like and it goes on because Heather comes back into this film from the first film, and it sort of builds around the story, and she's sort of talking about how she thought it was a good story, and again, this one looked a bit more promising, and really really cool. Then you get the next part of the documentary, and they're talking about 4, 5, and I think is it 6, the last one. I can't remember now, um, but that all the way up to sort of Freddy's Dead, and up to Freddy's Dead, they didn't seem to like them. Nobody actually liked being on the set or liked making them. Didn't like the directors. The director didn't like the outcome of the film. Although these were big box office sort of hits, it's quite surprising to see how many people involved with these films didn't actually like it, or didn't like doing it, or didn't like the outcome of it, which is a bit surprising. I mean, some of the actors, because some of the actors obviously quite like the genre, said that they were very proud to be in it, but obviously the outcomes of the films, it's not what they were set out to be. And Wes Craven pretty much saying he doesn't like any of them really. And so it's quite surprising to see, it's and cool to see a documentary being quite honest, like not all just praising what a great franchise it is. When you got most of the documentary, all the makers and filmmakers saying what a poor franchise it quite is really, and it's like and I think this is what happens when you get a bigger budget, because as the film progressed, it started to make millions and millions at the box office and got really popular with the audiences. But with the critics and the filmmakers, it was not such a good thing. But they're bigger budgets, and this is what happens, I think, when you get bigger budgets. And there's quite a few interviews with Robert Englund throughout the documentary, who plays Freddy. And he's very quite positive about every single one, which is you're going to see that it's his bread and butter. You know, it would be like Brad Dudley putting down some of the Hellraiser films, when it's been his bread and butter for his life, and so you know he's very positive about them. And his favourite one is he talks about is the New Nightmare. It's the one that Wes Craven came back to make after Freddy's Dead. Freddy's Dead was one where they supposedly killed him off, and it was directed by one of the women that's been in pretty much production of all the films, and she asked if she could direct it, and she got the chance to, and she looking at it, she's done a pretty good job at making it a happy environment for everyone involved making it. And they all seemed it was a really cool time, and they actually enjoyed making that one. But then they approached Wes Craven to do this one that's New Nightmare, and this is where the franchise took a different sort of turn, because he did it, but he did it in a different way. He sort of did it as the original actors. Are sort of like actors, and they've been drawn back to do something around the film, and it's like it's like it's a horror fans film, and it's like a tribute to the Elm Street sort of series, because it's like involving the actors as they are as actors, coming back to make a film sort of thing. And it's a really cool film, actually. I will look at that, and I will review that on my channel. I want to go back and look at that because I've watched this documentary now, because I remembered how cool, and I like that one. I've not seen it for a while. I do own the box set, and I have to say it's a disappointing box set, but there we go. We'll talk about that when we get around to doing the review of that. But it's really cool to see Wes Craven sort of enjoying it again, and that the original cast came back for this film, and it was like, except Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp's not in it, but it was really cool to see that they still had that love for it. And I thought then the documentary would end, you know what I mean, but it didn't, because we want to use film Freddy versus Jason, which I honestly enjoyed. It's a rubbish story, but it's a popcorn movie, and that's all it tries to be. It doesn't try to be anything else, because the director that came in for it is not a fan of either franchise, but they said that's why they wanted him, so he could come in with sort of some fresh sort of outlook, and it works. I actually quite enjoyed it. And it was quite strange, because Kane Hodder, who plays Jason in pretty much most of the films since Part 6, wasn't allowed to play Jason in this, because they wanted someone who was really tall. So they got a Jason that was about 6'7", 6'8", because they wanted them to dwarf Freddy. And so he was sort of, although he was up for it and he was signed for it, he got pushed out. And it was a bit gutting to hear that, because I'm thinking, you know, you can't do that, because Kane Hodder is Jason Voorhees, you know, and it's like, and it talks about how the fans were really upset with New Line, cinema for doing this. And I can understand that, because when I heard it, I was upset too. I just thought maybe he'd have a project, that's why he wasn't in it. But no, he was pushed out from it, and that's really sad to hear. Um, but again, it's good to see that they had a good time making it, and Robert England said it was a great, good film, and he really enjoyed making it. And Wes Craven says he doesn't like it. Wes Craven says that about everything that Wes Craven doesn't make. He's been like that. God rest his soul. But that's his right, it's his baby, it's his project, and it's gone off to spawn this whole franchise. Should it have been a franchise? Maybe not. I think, yes, it could have had a couple of sequels, but I don't think it should have been a franchise myself. But back in the day, everything had to be a franchise, and not all of them worked. Look at the House series and stuff like that. That was so bizarre. It just didn't work as a franchise for me. And it spawned sequels and stuff, but it was a money-making machine. So that's what this documentary pretty much tells you, that it was a money-making machine, with some good films in there and some absolute rubbish films in there. And I agree with that. And it's not my favourite franchise from the 80s. There is a couple of corking films in there, especially the ones where Wes Craven was involved. But yeah, it was a really interesting documentary. So sorry, I'm yawning. This documentary is 4 hours, and I've just sat through the whole thing. So I'm a bit, all sort of like blur, I'm a bit tired from watching it. And it also discusses a lot of the history about New Line Cinema, because this was one of the films that sort of pushed that company forward into be able to produce other films. This was its sort of money maker back in the day. But it is a good thing. But it's a 2-disc set. The first one is the documentary, which lasts 4 hours, and the second disc is extra features. And I've not seen them yet, but it looks like there's a heck of a lot of them on there. So that could be another day. But I did watch it. And what did I think of it? I enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool. It didn't go into as much depth than I thought it would. I mean, because I've watched the Hellraiser one, is it Leviathan? And that's fantastic, because it really goes into depth over the making of it and the actors and everything. This sort of balances on everything, and sort of tells you the results of it, how much money it made, sort of thing. So it was good to a point. It just lacked something. I can't put my finger on it. I just would have liked to have heard more about the people's sort of feelings about, and their stories of when they were there making it, like especially Robert England. I'd love to have heard more stories from him when he was making it, and it wasn't a lot of stories there from him, and so that was I think what it lacks. Apart from that, it's a really cool watch. I'm going to score this a great film and give it a 7 out of 10. I think that's fair, because it is only a documentary. It's 4 hours long, but I did really enjoy it. There is a couple more I would like to get. There is the Crystal Lake Memories, which I believe is like a documentary on Friday the 13th. I might try and pick that up at some point and watch that and give that review. And I know they've done one on Child Play, Chucky, so that might be another one. I wish they did one on no, not Pieces, don't worry, but I wish that they did more of these sort of things, so we get stories behind these franchises in the 80s. A nice big Halloween one would be good, but there we go. So, but I'm going to keep my eyes out for the Friday the 13th one. So, Never Sleep Again, 7 out of 10. Any of you guys seen it? If you have, let me know what you thought of it. It's a good watch, and it's a very interesting watch, and it's definitely worth having in your collection, especially if Nightmare on Elm Street is one of your favourite franchises. It's essential to have, because it's the ultimate documentary on it. So it's a great thing to own. I picked it up, I think it's about a tenner. So you can pick up at good prices if you can. but it's on 101 Film, so I don't think it'll be around forever. So try and pick it up while you can. See you soon, guys.